Post-draft tiers, all 32 teams, no one's been eliminated, even if we know some potentially have been. We start at the bottom. Scouting Carson, Quinn, and Shedeur. Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, and Shedeur Sanders. These are three teams that know they don't have a plan or an answer at quarterback. It's particularly tough for the Panthers, who had the number one pick at quarterback last year and could have had.
I gotta say, I made a Raiders video recently, and the Raiders fans are really, really, really high on AOC. So they think they have a squad. They're happy with their coach. They're happy with their team. They're ready to go. So I'm going to say that they will be not happy about this, at them being at the way bottom and on the level as the Panthers and the Giants.
Had it this year, but that's the situation.
Wow.
Speaking of quarterback, praying we picked the right quarterback.
Sure.
Three teams, they're picking two.
The Broncos fans
three,
are also very unhappy.
And a guy who should have gone 72, but at number 12, just praying, hope against hope, that they picked the right quarterback, because if not, your next half decade, at a minimum, is realizing it, accepting it, and then looking for the right quarterback. Local coverage. Thank God for local sports talk radio for these four teams, because I just don't know what they would have to do to really, honestly make the show.
Well,
Kyler and Marvin Harrison, I suppose, will be in Weird and Wonderful. But aside from that, it's just not. That's not happening. Listen. That's what Ken Carman in Cleveland's for, and Brock Ewart in Seattle for the local coverage of the teams, striving for above average. Hey, listen, that's just good enough to win the NFC South. Can we be slightly above average? Can we sneak into the playoffs? Because you know what that means? Everybody keeps their jobs. We're not trying to win Super Bowls here, guys. We're trying to keep our kids in their private schools. That's what we're doing, and not have to move. Maybe, but probably not. I mean, there's a chance any of these teams could win 10 games. There's a chance that the Steelers have a real upgrade at quarterback this year. There's a chance that Anthony Richardson, fulfills the promise he briefly showed last year for a Colts team that was right on the border of the playoffs with Gardner Minshew. There's a chance that Harbaugh takes a 5-win team to 10 wins, and there's a chance that JJ is plug and play in Minnesota, but probably not.
Okay, I wouldn't say probably not with those teams. I think the Steelers definitely upgraded at the quarterback position. I talked about the Colts recently, that I think with Shane Steichen, that there could be some major moves with the Colts, without a doubt. I haven't dug deep into what other pieces that they've been able to have, but give a legitimate quarterback to Shane Steichen and you will have success. You heard it here. Shane Steichen is a bona fide offensive mind. He will be in the same conversation as the Shanahan and the McVays. Not a doubt in my mind. Not a doubt in my mind. Okay? He is the real deal. So you give him a quarterback and you are going to have legitimate success. Now, the Colts franchise as a whole can be a little wonky. Their ownership can be a little wonky. No disrespect to the owner. I know he has his own personal life issues, and so I don't want to rag on him too much, but I know that definitely can make things complicated. But him individually, absolutely. I trust Harbaugh, and I definitely trust Herbert. I think that they can absolutely have success. But it is true, I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know if they'll be able to hit the ground running right away, if this is more of a 1 to 2 year plan, because, the Chargers were in disarray. And I also really trust the Minnesota Vikings and that entire coaching staff. And I think J.J. McCarthy will have a lot of success. But again, I never try to guess how quickly a quarterback is going to be able to hit the ground running. Again, that might be a year or two type process as well. So I do get the category of maybe, but probably not. But I think it's maybe not. Not probably not. Saying probably not is just too strong. I know we're nitpicking here, but hey, he's the one that comes up with the titles here. I also would I would put the Broncos in that category as well. You have Sean Payton and Bo Nix. I think you're going to have potential to have tremendous amount of success there. So I think it is a maybe not, where it's kind of I don't know, let's just see how long this takes to kind of go. Because again, the Broncos also weren't necessarily just a quarterback away. That also kind of takes some time to kind of rebuild up there. So I would really put them up there as well.
make or break season. All three of these teams' head coaches enter the year on the hot seat. The GMs might as well. Certainly in New York and Jacksonville they do. All three of these teams believe they have a top-flight quarterback. All three of these teams believe they should be in the very crowded AFC playoff picture. Anyone that is not is going to be looking for, at a minimum, a new head coach this offseason. Don't you think if any of those teams miss the playoffs?
Yeah.
I think so.
I wonder about Buffalo. That's the only one, McDermott.
Are they better than last year?
If any of those three teams don't make it the playoffs, I don't see how. I think all those coaches would probably be fine. I would be pretty surprised. You could make the argument Doug Peterson stays. It all depends on what happens to the offense. But I would say that they would. How would you not fire from the position of the Jets or the Buffalo Bills? I disagree with this. The Eagles are not on the same level as the Dallas Cowboys or the Miami Dolphins, quite honestly. I don't want to act like I think that the Eagles are by far and away on this like next level. I think the Cowboys and Dolphins, I think the Dolphins are ahead of the Cowboys as well. I don't know where I would put the Cowboys. I would put the Cowboys probably the make it or break season. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, are they better than last year? The Cowboys are not better than last year. We know that for a fact. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. The Dolphins, I think, are better than they are last year, so I would nudge them up. And the Eagles are definitely better than they are last year. So enough of that nonsense. So I would put the Cowboys in that category with the Jets and the Jaguars and the Bills. But to be clear, I think the Bills are better than the Cowboys, and I think the Jets are better than the Cowboys. I'm just going based off of the title of make it or breaks, make or break season. Not necessarily like it's the tier system is always hard to kind of move around the teams.
All three of these teams ended their season being embarrassed. For Miami, it was blowing the AFC East, and then the entire world just recognizing 20 minutes into a playoff game, oh, they're too cold.
Yeah.
Oh, man, they're just too chilly out there. For the Eagles, it was what some analysts call one of the worst collapses in NFL history, losing 6 of 7. What others call a supernatural funk. Whatever it is, it was awful.
It was not a collapse, and it wasn't a supernatural funk. Okay? They were never as good as their record appeared. They had a bad OC, a bad DC, and a bunch of players who were running on fumes that had nothing left in the tank. And then they also had injuries. Jalen Hurts was injured. A.J. Brown was injured. Okay? So this whole idea that they were this great elite team and then that they just completely collapsed because of a supernatural funk is just so insane to me. It's not what it was. They had real issues, and because of the fight that they had, they were able to find a way to win those games against teams like the Chiefs and the Bills, but those were games that they could have lost. But since they are a strong team and have a great culture, they were able to endure their issues and still win. That is a testament to who they are as a franchise. But that could only take you so far. That is why they had the collapse, or some would just call it a losing streak, which happens. And again, then you had injuries. I mean, Jalen Hurts' knee was messed up. He dislocated his finger. A.J. Brown, the number 1 receiver. I mean, like, what do you think Patrick Mahomes was doing if you didn't have Rashee Rice or if you didn't have Travis Kelce? What do you think's happening? And so it's just this idea that you can just overcome all of these issues, having a bad OC where no one was ever open. There was never a single wide receiver that was ever open. I think Jalen Hurts led the league in most type window throws, or he was the most accurate type window throws because that's what he was forced to do nearly every single time he threw the ball. That's just the way it goes. So I just really think that's so absurd. And I wouldn't say that the Miami Dolphins were embarrassed either. They lost to the Super Bowl champions of the Kansas City Chiefs, who Nick Wright says that they're the most amazing team ever and that they're unstoppable and unbelievable. So I just think that that's absurd that you were saying that their season ended in embarrassment. Now the Cowboys lost in embarrassment. Absolutely. There's no other way to spin that. And I'm not just saying that to be a Cowboys hitter. Like, they were legitimately embarrassed. There's no counter to that.
And for the Cowboys, it was one of the most embarrassing 3 hours of football, really just 90 minutes of football. The first half, it was over, to end an otherwise promising year. This is a line from Ben Solak from The Ringer. Shout out to him. Progression is not linear in the NFL. It's not the NBA, where, okay, you get to 500, you get to the playoffs, then you're a contender. In 2022, the Chargers made the playoffs for the first time. The Seahawks made the playoffs. The Giants made the playoffs. They all went backwards. In 2021, the Patriots with a rookie quarterback, the Raiders with an interim head coach, the Cardinals with Kyler, and they all went backwards. I am not saying that will happen to all of these teams. I am saying that the idea that all three of these teams will continue on the trajectory we saw last year is belied by NFL history. At least one, if not two of these teams are going to have oddly frustrating years, because that's what NFL history tells us, that the progression is more like the stock market chart. It eventually goes up, but there are some, stops and fits in the middle of it. Party crashers, everyone is going to have one of these four teams in the Super Bowl in the NFC. San Francisco will be the most popular choice. Detroit will be the next most popular choice. Then there will be Philly, and then there will be folks who will be like, you know what? I'm going to take a dark horse. Look out for the Packers. Those are going to be the entirety of the Super Bowl picks. I think one of these two teams could crash that party. I love the coaching of the Rams and what they showed last year with young players and now a healthy Stafford. And I think the Bears had one of the best off seasons any team has had in a decade. For those reasons, I think those teams are party crashers. Group therapy. So what brings you here? We had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, and lost Super Bowl, and then we had a lead in overtime. For a lot of NFL history, that just meant the game was over, and we lost that one. What about you? Well, we thought we had two stadiums, and we talked about it, and ever since then, we haven't played a relevant football game. And what about you? Well, we had the best season we've had. We won the league MVP, and we hosted a game to go to our first Super Bowl in a decade, and then never touched the ball once with them a score in the second half. Oh, really? Who did it to you? Show the top of the tiers! Really? Bad for business. Listen, find me, whether it's...
All right. Listen, man. Let's be real here. The 49ers lost the Super Bowl. The Chiefs didn't win the Super Bowl. There were some bad breaks for the 49ers, whether it be injuries on defense, a freak fumble, two freak fumbles, really. I will say that also some suspect play calling, especially in the second half. The Bengals, they've been getting injured. Joe Burrow's injured. And also it's weird to me because he said that before, that the Bengals don't really look that good, and now he's elevating them. So that's weird. And the Ravens was also completely self-inflicted. Completely self-inflicted, whether it was trying to reach across the goal line, which you're taught not to do at the age of 4, from the moment you even know what the heck of football is, you're told not to do that. And then also getting multiple unsportsmanlike penalties, just a disaster all around, and also terrible play calling by the Ravens. So let's be real here. I do think, you can put the Chiefs at the top because they are, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, hard to bet against that. I would keep the 49ers up there, as well as the Ravens. I'm not so sure that the Bengals belong up there. I mean, this is the way how I really see it. And I've made these comments before. I know it's just like unsexy and doesn't get all the clicks in like a perfect little line, but like the way I see it is that you have Kansas City just a notch above, like ever so slightly above. And then you have the 49ers, the Ravens. I would put the Rams in there. And I would put the Packers, the Lions, the Texans, and the Eagles as anything goes. Anyone can go. I really think it's just like, again, are you going to get that crazy fumble on the kickoff? When you do intercept Patrick Mahomes, are you able to actually run it back for a touchdown, run it back and get in field goal range, or no? Does that ball land on the 1 yard line, or does it, bounce into the end zone. Like, it's, to me, the margin of error is so small. Does your field goal kicker, go wide? Like, I think that's what it comes down to. So I just think, like, all of those teams can win. And I get why the Bears are up there, because I think a lot of people, I think ever since we saw CJ Stroud ball out right away, people are saying, well, hey, the Bears can do that. And I think it's a possibility, but I don't know if they're crashing the party just yet. I think they're knocking on the door really loud, and the music's really loud, and so no one can really they can't hear the knock just yet. And so now it's whether or not, this is a funny analogy, whether or not the Bears are either just going to kick the door down, or if they're just going to be like, man, whatever, they're not letting us in. Maybe next year, maybe next time, and they'll go away. I really don't. But, I think, like I said this before in my Bears videos, that I think so much is going to be dependent upon how successful they are and how early they are. How early does their success come? If they get off to like a mediocre start or like a not such an elite start, then I think you can run into some issues, especially with Caleb Williams being a little bit more emotional. I think that'll be a little bit difficult, a little bit different of an experience, and a little bit more harder for him to succeed in. But if he hits the ground running, gets a bunch of wins under his belt, let's say he starts off 2-0, 3-0, 4-1, then I think that momentum and that confidence can really build up, and then I think the Bears can, really rip off a run. But let's say they start 0-1, 0-2, let's say with his first couple games goes and he's thrown 3 interceptions, right? Which is definitely a real possibility. We see this all the time with these young quarterbacks. Like, then I could see things unravel. So I just think it's, it is, going to be by definition a house of cards, where it could look absolutely amazing and can look like, this beautiful architecture, but it could also be a little bit more fragile. That's the benefit that you have when you have a strong team with a strong coach with seasoned veterans like the 49ers, like the Kansas City Chiefs, like the Eagles, like, like the Rams even, so I think those are the things that matter. But I wouldn't say that this list is terrible, but because again, I also think that I would put the Jets in the section of the party crashers, because I really think if they're healthy, this is the same analogy with knocking on the door, the Jets can easily crash the party. They're strong enough to barrel through the door and say, we are here, and guess what? Turn that music off. We're putting in our own music. We're plugging in my own iPhone for the music. The problem is are they going to be healthy enough? Because their hands might be broken and they might not be able to knock on the door. To me, if they're healthy, the Jets can absolutely make legitimate, serious moves in the AFC. But the big question is health. Health. Which, of course, we could say that about lots of teams, but the Jets do seem to be more flirting with this. Are we healthy? Are we not healthy? Are we healthy? Are we not healthy? Right? They have a lot of these injury-prone players or older players. Obviously, of course, Aaron Rodgers as well. Everyone's questioning how well will he be. I think he's going to be a great quarterback. I think he'll be healthy, and I think he really wants to ball out and will be ready to ball out. I think he's motivated. He's hungry. He's ready to go. Nick Wright said before about Dak Prescott, how he has the incentive to play, and that'll boost him up, and he'll be able to be better, with the contract lingering. And I think Aaron Rodgers will have a similar experience in terms of saying, like, he knew last season was obviously not good. He hears all the talking. He hears all the whispers. He hears everyone say he'll never be the same. He's old. He's washed. He's done. And Aaron Rodgers has a massive ego. He does not want to go out that way. He wants to show the world who he is. And better believe he's going to do everything he can to do that. So I think the Jets can actually be a legitimately really, really good team. So I think that they are also considered a quote-unquote party crashers. So yeah, that's just the way I see it. These lists are always tough to me, quite honestly, because I don't know. I at this point, especially when you haven't even seen how they're playing, and of course who's healthy and who's not, and how things are going, is the offensive line as good as we thought for the Rams or something, making up a team? Like, I don't know. Oh, wow, their secondary. I didn't realize how slow their secondary is. Like, there's all these questions that you just don't really know until the season begins. So these things can be fun to kind of look at, but I don't take them too seriously personally. But those are just my thoughts I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you think about Nick's post-draft NFL tiers? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.